Welcome back, focused learners. Okay, so step into the ring with me today for an explainer that literally hits right at the core of human resilience. Picture this, right? You're standing on the canvas, your gloves are up, sweat is just dripping down your face, the lights are absolutely blinding, and your heart is pounding in your ears. You are totally, completely ready for a massive hit from your opponent, because you've trained for this. But what if the blow that actually knocks you flat isn't the giant haymaker you've been so desperately bracing for? Well, today, we're dissecting the blindside effect and figuring out exactly why unexpected blows prevail. We're going to explore how this plays out in boxing, in business, and honestly, in the quiet, mundane moments of your everyday life. Just listen to this quote. It's not the strongest punch that you know is coming. It is a weak punch that you don't know is of, the one that knock you down. Just let that contrast sink in for a second. The strongest punch versus the weak punch. It totally defies our basic primal logic of combat and survival, doesn't it? Like we spend all our time worrying about the giants, the massive looming threats. But time and time again, it's the invisible ghosts that get us. Okay, let's dive into this whole idea of the unexpected punch. Because this isn't just a sharp metaphor for fighters. It captures a deeply ingrained psychological truth about how we process and navigate threats as humans. When we step into any arena, whether that's, a literal boxing ring, navigating a brutal quarter at work, or just managing our personal relationships, we are fundamentally wired to defend against what we can clearly see. Our brains are beautifully adapted to spot the roaring lion in the brush. We dedicate literally all our cognitive resources to the visible danger. So what does that mean for the strikes we don't see? What happens when the danger isn't a lion, but a tiny, venomous spider we never even noticed? Think about it. When an expected punch is coming your way, you instinctively prepare. You tense your muscles. You tighten your guard. You adjust your balance and ground your feet. You are biologically and mechanically fully braced to absorb that impact. Your entire body basically turns into a giant shock absorber. But consider the unexpected punch. Because you don't see it coming, your muscles are relaxed. It just effortlessly slips past those tightly held defenses. It catches you entirely off balance. And the physics of it are devastating. Because you aren't braced, your head snaps back, it rattles your brain, and it just knocks the wind right out of you. It comes from a hidden angle that completely bypasses all of that heavy armor you spent so much time building. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it boils down to one simple, yet profoundly important mechanism. Foreknowledge dulls impact. Because you know a hit is coming, your body and your mind physically and chemically brace for it. Adrenaline spikes, cortisol floods your system, and you become a literal fortress. And that's exactly why, in combat sports, the most devastating knockouts rarely come from the hardest, wildest swings that everyone in the arena can see coming a mile away. No way. They come from the subtle strike thrown from a blind spot, the punch that sneaks past your foreknowledge. Your awareness acts as a literal shield, and without it, well, you're entirely exposed. So let's step out of the literal boxing ring for a minute. In our everyday reality, this dynamic shifts from physical bruises to psychological and emotional ones. It becomes this quiet, creeping phenomenon best described not as a dramatic knockout blow, but as death by paper cuts. I mean, we rarely face literal haymakers in our modern lives, do we? But we absolutely face a daily barrage of unseen, tiny strikes that we entirely fail to brace for. And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast. Think about how we handle anticipated major crises. A sudden job loss, a major illness in the family, or a massive financial market crash. These are our modern haymakers. And what do? We react actively. We immediately sit down and plan, we aggressively save money, we adapt our lifestyles, and we rally support from our network of friends and family. We tense our muscles and tighten our guard. But what about the dismissed little things? The minor health issues we confidently brush off, a casual betrayal from a friend that we pretend didn't hurt, or that creeping, mundane daily stress from a heavily congested commute. Because we don't code these things as major threats, we don't raise our guard. And the result? They completely blindside us. They rot the foundation while we're busy staring at the storm clouds. Let's walk through how these small, unseen punches actually sequence together in real time, because it rarely happens all at once. It starts small. Step 1, you ignore a minor health issue, maybe a persistent headache or a slight ache in your back. Step 2, there's a casual betrayal at work. Someone takes credit for your idea in a meeting, but you tell yourself, just let it slide. You don't process it. Then comes step 3. You develop tiny bad habits to cope with that unacknowledged frustration. You start skipping sleep, maybe doom scrolling late at night or eating poorly. And finally, step 4, creeping stress fully locks in. Now, none of these are a knockout punch on their own, but they secretly accumulate, gradually breaking down your stance and dropping your guard, until eventually you are completely knocked down by something that seems entirely trivial to the outside world. This right here is the ultimate difference between death by paper cuts and sword wounds. A massive sword wound is the terrifying haymaker you trained for. You see the glint of the blade in the sun, you pull out your shield, and you put all your raw, focused strength into surviving that single, massive, undeniable blow. It demands your absolute respect. But the tiny paper cut? You don't even respect it. You ignore it. You might not even notice it happened until hours later. And because you don't respect the small punch, because you don't treat it as a legitimate threat, it's the one that ultimately drops you harder than the giant swing you were fully prepared for. Okay, let's move to and see how this builds into our next point, adaptability over raw strength. If foreknowledge saves us from the big hits, but the unseen small hits are what actually take us out, then our survival strategy has to fundamentally change. Our entire paradigm needs a shift. It is no longer just about bulking up, building thicker walls, and preparing to take a massive hit. It is entirely about prioritizing adaptability over raw strength. Raw strength is meant for the threats you can see. Adaptability is meant for the world as it actually is, unpredictable, messy, and full of blind spots. So the crucial point is, if you only prepare for those big, obvious threats, you actually become brittle. You're like a rigid fortress, massive, imposing stone walls facing the front door, ready to withstand a siege, but with absolutely no defense or alarm system at the back gate. A single spy could sneak in and tear the whole shebang down. But shifting your focus to cultivating awareness, that makes you like water, incredibly fluid, constantly moving, and significantly less likely to be caught off guard. When you're adaptable, an unexpected shift in your environment doesn't shatter you, you simply flow around it. Let's formally define what we mean here. In this context, adaptability means cultivating awareness and resilience to avoid being caught by sneaky, underestimated threats, rather than relying on raw strength to withstand obvious crises. It is an active state, not a passive one. It's about keeping your head on a swivel, maintaining a constant, gentle scan of your environment and your own mental state. It means staying light on your feet, instead of just planting your boots into the concrete, putting your head down and waiting for a massive storm to hit. Really, it's the difference between being a rigid oak tree that just snaps in a hurricane and a willow that naturally bends in the wind. And I really want this foundational truth to stick with you because it's incredibly empowering. The strongest blow you see coming is survivable. Your foreknowledge, your preparation, your conscious bracing, these are the exact evolutionary mechanisms that save you from the massive expected hits. You are incredibly resilient. You are built right down to your very DNA to survive the monsters you can clearly see. You don't need to live in fear of the giant waves because you already know how to build a boat. But here is the flip side. Quote, "But the underestimated strike, the one your ego says is harmless, is the real danger." Think about the incredibly dangerous role of the ego here. Our ego loves to whisper to us. It tells us, hey, I'm strong. A little extra stress won't hurt me. Or, I'm tough. A tiny bad habit doesn't matter. I can totally handle this on 4 hours of sleep. The ego actively tricks us into dropping our guard. It makes us feel totally invincible and safe against the very things that are quietly slipping past our defenses to knock the wind right out of us. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a direct question to ponder. Look closely at your own life, your own routines, and your own creeping stressors. What underestimated strike is your ego telling you is harmless today? Is it a conversation you've been avoiding? A small physical pain you're just ignoring? A bad habit you keep brushing off? Identify it. Call it out into the light. Keep your guard up, stay profoundly adaptable, and please don't let those paper cuts blindside you. Until next time, keep learning and stay focused.